This is the Court Leader's Advantage, a podcast series for court professionals and by court professionals. Brought to you by thecourtleader.net and in cooperation with NACM, the National Association for Court Management. The 2024 NACM Annual Conference brought together court professionals from across the country to share best practices, to address common challenges, and discover innovative solutions. Titled Leadership Opportunities and Challenges for Our Nation's Courts, Leading Leaders into the New Tomorrow, it convened a dynamic mix of professionals, including many emerging voices in the field who are passionate about the future of our judicial system. From discussions on the latest technologies like artificial intelligence to strategies to enhance access to justice, the conference provided a rich platform for learning and collaboration. I'm Pete Kiefer, and welcome to the Court Leader's Advantage podcast series. This month, we're going to ask young court professionals the question, what was your biggest takeaway from this year's NACM conference? You'll hear directly from young attendees about valuable insights, practical tools, and inspiring connections that they are taking home with them. Whether you're a seasoned administrator or just starting in your career, this episode will allow you to understand what were the most impactful takeaways from the NACM 2024 Annual Conference. Here to share their takeaways are Carrie Summers Nomura, Program Coordinator for the Clackamas County Circuit Court in Oregon City, Oregon. Carrie has been with the court for a little over 2 years. Before that, she was a college sociology instructor. The court has 11 judges, 1 referee, and a staff of over 100. Tiffany Tuta, Court Administrator with the Municipal Court in Victoria, Texas. Tiffany has been with the court for the last 12 years, working in tandem with her judge and city management. Lizzie Lopez, Court Administrator with the Municipal Court in Timnath, Colorado. Timnath has a population of a little over 9,000. Both the judge and the city prosecutor are contracted by the city. Lizzie reports to the town clerk. Latricia Kinlow is the Judicial Branch Administrator with the Municipal Court in Tukwila, Washington. Her court has 1 judge and 11 staff. Tukwila is very diverse. As an example, the school system deals with over 150 different languages. Miha Kapaki, Court Administrator with the District Court in Grays Harbor County, Washington. The county has a population of about 77,000 and is located in southwestern Washington state on the Olympic Peninsula. The court has a staff of 13. And Samantha Wallace, Deputy Trial Court Administrator for the Supreme Court in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Her court serves the 5 northern counties of the state and has 20 judges. Thank you all for joining today's podcast. What is the one takeaway that you think you can use in your court when you return home, and why? Samantha Wallace?
One of the biggest takeaways for me is the need and importance of a support system. I signed up for the NACM mentor program last year, and it was so helpful, not just to get more involved with NACM itself, but as a sounding board for all of your local problems. You know, it can be a very unbiased help. And so I would like to implement an Idaho-specific mentor program, because we don't really have anything like that, particularly for new employees. But just starting out, it would be for any employee that would feel the need for help, you know, all around Idaho. NACM is amazing, but sometimes it can't quite understand Idaho-specific problems, just like every state has its own problems. So I would really like to implement that going forward.
Carrie Summers Nomura?
So this was my second year at the NACM conference, and the first year I felt like I was really just trying to figure out things. And similarly, I joined the early career professional group and have been participating monthly in that, and that has helped me so much just with identifying resources and things like that. But at this conference, one of the things that I knew, but I needed to hear it from other professionals, is just really looking at the culture of a court, because it's something that our court has struggled with. Coming from a trauma-informed background, I loved some of the sessions that I attended that really reiterated the idea that we must really focus on people first that are doing this very tough work in our court. And so, I loved our keynote speaker, Valerie Grubb, who basically was like, it's your leaders, it's a trickle down sort of approach. And you need to make sure that your leaders are on board, really recognizing staff, both positive and negative. It doesn't always have to be negative feedback that they're giving, but really, I hope to return to my court and to share a lot of this knowledge with our staff and really try to empower our supervisors and managers of people to really be taking that same approach, that we're really focused on the people. How can we best support them so that they can continue doing this tough work?
Latricia Kinlow.
What I really enjoyed about this conference this year is the focus on us as leaders. The court is changing, and we that are in these leadership positions, we have to be willing to pivot. It's no longer the 20th century style of leadership. It's the 21st century style of leadership, and understanding the generations that are coming into the workforce. And so what I have begun to realize is that, this very traditional career in our court is changing. And so I really have to look at what things are we doing that we can do more efficiently, and really, bring in this newer generation to kind of teach me and lead me in some areas, because we really want to make our jobs here attractive to this new generation that's coming in. And folks, if you don't have telework or some type of flexible schedule or something, we're just fighting against ourselves. And so, what this really emphasized during this conference is that the need to really look at how we're leading and really focus on the people that we're leading. And so what I'm taking back is, to just really lean in to the younger generation. I have a generation that has never seen a typewriter. So, or a rotary phone. And so, that makes me archaic, I know. Really leaning into the things, that make this profession attractive to them, and seeing what things I can implement.
Tiffany Tuta.
Yeah, so for me, it was really about the opportunities to learn about some of the trends in technology and how courts and court leaders need to be prepared on how to implement these things. I really had a vested interest in attending all of the AI tracks, because that's something that our courts are having to deal with as we see folks come into our facilities. And so it's important for us to work with our key stakeholders to be prepared to implement these technologies within our own systems.
Lizzie Alipez.
It's always great to be at NACM, that I have to say. And the things you try to rescue from what you learn and what you didn't learn is vast. But what I would take as the most important thing is the willingness of the people that I met this time to help, to be there if you need to grow, either professionally or as a human. And the greatest connections I think I made this time were with the speakers. And of course, having a mentor like you made all the difference. And I hope to learn even more for next time and put everything I've learned into work in my court, although we're very small, but you can always grow.
Miha Kapaki.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Lizzie. I really enjoyed Janet Cornell's I'm a court administrator, now what? And she talked about GROW, and that was her little acronym, goals. What is the ultimate goal that you have? The R was reality. Where are we now? The O was options. What are our options? How are we going to get to where we're going to go? And that W was for way. What's the best way we're going to do it? What's the plan? And how we're going to get there? And I found that I was really impressed with her, because I've heard that acronym. I think they talked about it last year, but she used it in this example for reprimanding, another employee, because nobody likes to do that. But when you look at it in that growth mind perspective of what are our goals? Where are we at now? How can we get to a better place? I thought, wow, that was really a genius move. So I found that I could use that at my court in numerous ways. Honestly, I could probably use it with my kids too.
What is the one takeaway you think you can use in your personal or professional life, and why? Carrie?
One of the things that I personally took from some of the content that I learned this week is, really coming from that trauma-informed background from a career, is more conversation. This happened in a couple of sessions that I attended about mental health, and not just the mental health of our customers, but also looking at the mental health of our staff and really trying to meet them where they're at. Similarly, kind of thinking about those generations. I love one of the sessions that I attended that was talking about sort of bridging the gap in the different generations. And, I think a lot of times in our courts, we are really sort of traditionalists. And we, look at younger people, maybe millennials and Gen Zs, and think, well, why aren't they doing it this way? But I think they have a lot to offer that maybe we just need to slow down and pay attention to. So a couple of things. The big one, though, for me was really mental health. I mean, we know statistically in the United States, 1 in 4 people, and that statistic is probably fairly low. 1 in 4 people will experience some type of mental health disorder. And, that translates to our staff as well. So, doing more self-care things. We've started doing chair massages quarterly at our court. And I've had court staff come up to me and say, this is the nicest thing the court has ever done for me. And I'm like, okay, we have checked that box. So, we're going in the right direction. And I think there probably needs to be more of that.
Trish?
My fear of AI. I'll be honest, I usually go over the NACM agenda before I come with my judge and say, okay, here's what they're offering. What do you think I should take and bring back? And she was just highlighting everything that had to deal with AI. And so I'm a little apprehensive about it, but I felt so much better when they kept saying, you're already doing it. You're already engaged in AI, and just a sense of responsibility for making sure there aren't any biases in our AI processes and things. And then it kind of got me excited of what other things can we do? Like what kinds of hearings or what kind of communication for our limited English proficient customers, what can we use AI to really meet their needs? And so that's what I'm excited about, learning more about AI and talking to our technology department and seeing, what kind of things can we implement. So that's what I got out of it. Don't be afraid of AI.
Samantha?
I think the biggest takeaway for myself is to attempt to have a work-life balance. I think even though I'm kind of a younger millennial, I kind of have an older mentality of I have to be available 24/7 or I'm going to get fired or I'm going to get in trouble at work, and I have to be available all the time and answer emails right away. And I will say there have been times where if I don't, people have emailed my boss and said, well, I'm not responding to this email, and it makes it very difficult. But I think it also helps having a different mentality of just working. And yes, that is also because of the different generations. And so I'm really striving to have a healthy work-life balance. I don't want to go home and dream about work anymore and the stress. And we all have such stressful jobs. It's very, very important. And actually, I think the first time I heard the term work-life balance was at a NACM conference. So,
Tiffany?
Yeah, so for me, I think it really boiled down to all of the different connections that I made throughout the conference and really being able to continue those relationships beyond that. And then really applying a lot of the knowledge and things that I learned. A couple of the main tracks that I really enjoyed were actually the opening and the closing session, because it really took a chance to think about yourself as a leader, think about those within your office and how you can better communicate with those. And to me, I think that can help me both personally and professionally to be able to implement some of those skill sets within our organization and within our leadership as well.
Lizzie?
Oh, if I could list all of the things I'm going to try to put into place in my court and my life, the podcast will go long. So I'm going to try to reduce it to both court professionally and personally. I really enjoy the power of coaching. I took away the most important thing in my case that TJ mentioned was do not take things personally. And I think that goes specifically to both places, professionally and life personally. The other takeaway that I loved a lot was, like Tiffany said, the closing session from Desmond. I think I don't remember his name. Lomax is, I think, the last name, but how we see others and how others see us, and that two mindset that really changes everything that you can expect from a person, professionally or personally, and how you are perceived. Because anything you can say and you think you're getting it out the way you think, not necessarily is perceived the way you think. So those are the two takeaways I would definitely try to do, practice more and implement in my court. And one last thing was the leading with empathy.
Miha?
That was beautiful, Lizzie. I was going to talk a little bit about strategic planning and structure. I like to have a good plan and a structure. They talked about the annual planning, and I do, my weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual checklists of everything that needs to happen in the court. So I found that session very informational, because that's just the way my brain functions as well. But the biggest takeaway I would say is also mirroring Tiffany, is those connections that we make. We work in a very demanding job that often we are drained of everything we have. I feel, anyway. I don't know if any of you feel that way, but we are constantly dealing with people that don't want to be there. They have that very negative energy. Honestly, they remind me a lot of teenagers. It's not my fault. You're giving me this ticket, you took away my license. It's draining. And so these connections mean the world to me, because outside of work, I'm kind of done peopling, and I just want to go home and be with my family and shut the door and just call it a night. So when I get to meet other administrators, Lizzie, we didn't speak much, but we both were at that 5K, and just knowing that I have a sister here who was always like 10 steps ahead of me, but I know that she knows what I do. I know that without even verbally communicating, we're all in that same boat. And that is pretty impactful. I feel like I've made some pretty good lifelong friends just in this line of work. And that's just something that you can't necessarily relate to with an average person that doesn't deal with what we deal with all the time. You don't even have to talk about work. Just knowing that we're in the courtroom, we're in the offices, we're dealing with prosecutors and defense, and we're doing all of this day in and day out, being, some days a puppet, some days, we're putting out fires. It's just an amazing experience to be around like people.
She's right. I mean, for me, I must be a very crazy, weird person, because I'm in heaven when I'm in the court. And like I told you, I would like to be in a bigger court. I would have to have jail, more cases. But this comes maybe because of my family background. I had my dad as a lawyer, half of my brothers, and that's a lot, and sisters are lawyers. My aunt and my grandfather was a Supreme Court judge, and coming here from another country, not knowing many people, not having friends, is exactly what Mija said. You can count on the connections you made, even we didn't talk verbally conversation, but you have a family and someone you can, even if you don't talk about work, like she said, you can count on for anything. And that's something that NACM gives you. And I was telling Janet this morning in one of her questions on the form, if you could say something to someone that has not attended a NACM conference, what would it be? I would say, do it. And even if you have to try to pay for yourself, the connection and the family you get to have there is priceless.
I want to thank Carrie Summers Nomura, Tiffany Tuta, Lizzie Alipez, Latricia Kinlow, Miha Kapaki, and Samantha Wallace for their frank and honest responses to the question, what was your biggest takeaway from the NACM 2024 Annual Conference? It's always valuable to hear directly from younger court professionals about what they found most impactful. These emerging leaders have a lot to tell us. We can always profit from their insights to help us craft better solutions that will shape our future. As always, my thanks to you court professionals for tuning in to today's episode. Even if you were unable to attend the conference, we all benefit from the wisdom that was generated in New Orleans. Thank you for all you do. Join us on Tuesday, September 17th for another episode dealing with the issues facing our courts. This has been the Court Leaders Advantage podcast series. I'm Pete Kiefer, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us today. The Court Leaders Advantage is a regular podcast series on courts and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, on the Court Leader website, on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Become part of the conversation. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, email us. Our address is podcasts@nacmnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to listen to again, but you don't want to search the entire episode to find it? The additional resources section of the webpage has a question time marker sheet. Find the discussion question on the sheet, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can quickly fast forward to that time and listen to the panelists' comments. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leader website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the host and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.